34 to 46.
They take eggs from people, as you can see there. They take sperm from people. Now, this is an interesting little kind of sketch here. The important thing about this sketch is not that they're taking sperm, but that there's an abductee there who has walked in to comfort the person who's having sperm taken. I've heard this many, many times. This is not uncommon. I've heard this from people who say they are comforted and from the comforters. I went into the room and I told this person lying on a table that everything was going to be okay. They said, this is an abductee talking to me. Here's another, this is sperm taking with neural engagement. I showed these same slides last time, so they're new to some of you, but not at all. Where they're staring into a person's eyes. Now the question is, what do you mean staring into a person's eyes? Well, I talked about this in the book The Thread, which is already getting a little bit long in the tooth, but still pretty good. And it talks about how abductees began to say early on that a being would come over to them and stare directly into their eyes at a distance of a few inches or even touching forehead to forehead. And I had no idea what that was. But I don't know how many, I stopped counting. Maybe I have 700 cases, something like that. You know, it's ubiquitous. Every abductee has this habit if you do enough sessions. If you do just one session, they'll just skip over it sometimes because it's too sort of profound for them. But this is something that happens to all abductees and almost all the time. And what they do is my guess is, but it's a really good guess, and we have substantial testimonial evidence for this, that they engage the optic nerve, they use the optic nerve as a transit, essentially, as a way into through the brain and into other neurological sites, and they can stimulate whatever neurons they want to. So they can stimulate all sorts of images, they can stimulate memories, they can stimulate feelings, they can do all sorts of stuff. And the problem is that I don't care how close they are, there's a gap between their eye and our eyes. Now, how they get that, and I'm going to use a word that I almost never use, how they get the energy to go through that gap, I don't know. I do not know. That is not, I don't know. I don't get that one. But that's what they do. That's my guess, and I'm sticking by that guess. Because I won't go into all the evidence for it. But there's plenty of it.
Hands 34 to 46.
Next. This would be a middle stage hybrid. You see, this guy here has whites in his eyes, a pointed chin, and slight hair, and he's weird looking, and look at how thin he is, but he's still but he's almost getting there. And he's pointing out, I think I pointed out last time, this is a street map, and he's giving this woman orders on what to do when the time comes. She will stand on this street and tell people who are panicked or in the streets, it's okay, just walk, come this way, come this way, come this way, everything is okay. That will be her job later. Here's a late stage hybrid. I don't know how good this drawing is. She's wearing sort of hybrid garb here a little bit, but she has actually sort of a full head of hair. Now here's a little secret. I'm not talking about human stage hybrids. If you read The Threat, I went to late stage hybrids, and that's where I stopped. But this is not human stage. Human stage is different. But she looks pretty good. She could probably pass. Here's another sort of late stage hybrid who has very large pupils, looks like a hunk, and he's wearing some sort of a uniform, which leads people to think that they're American military and the American government is involved with abducting people and that sort of stuff. But this is in fact a late stage hybrid. Here's a late stage hybrid, a group of them wearing wearing what looks like American military uniforms. Now, you don't know whether these hats are confabulation or not. Maybe they're not. But they interrogate the two abductees standing in the middle, and for reasons that we do not know, do not understand. We have no idea why this is. Here's a human stage hybrid. Here's another one. These people look human. Their eyes are not too big. Everything is fine. They got normal haircuts of sorts. They are just human. They're human. They are human. They're 111% human. But they're not 113% human. And that extra 2% means that they can connect neurally into you and control you. That's the one thing they got that we don't have. That makes us a second-class species. Not second-class citizens, second-class species. What I began to hear is this business about hybrids abductees helping hybrids integrate into the society. Now the question is, if this was an integration program, as had been being said for years and years, the question is, how do you do that? How do you do that? It turns out to be a complicated business with different people, different groups having different functions, there's a bureaucracy involved, and there's a series of procedures involved which allow for somebody to move into an apartment with the help of abductees. Because now abductees were coming in saying that they're helping them do this, helping them put furniture together to show where a chair goes there and a couch goes there, and in front of the couch there should be a table, and you should have a TV there, or something like that, so look at it, and how to make a bed, and what a pillow is for, and what goes into a refrigerator and what goes into a pantry, and the difference between the two, and things like that. And I was hearing this beforehand, but not in a real-time basis. I was hearing this as young kids would come down, hybrid children with a caretaker, into an abductee's home and take a tour of the kitchen, for example. And they would say, "What's this for?" And she'd say, "Well, it's a stove. And you cook things on this, with fire in a pan and all the rest of that stuff." "Well, how come you can cook things on the top of the stove, but there's an inside, and you can cook things on the inside too? Why do you need two things?" Well, she'd have to explain there's a different way of cooking and blah, blah, blah. And then there was, how a spigot works, what the water is for and all that, and why cans don't go into, unopened cans don't go into the refrigerator, and what do you freeze and what don't you freeze, and what is an ice cube, and how does an ice cube feel, and these are all for like 10-year-olds. Now, I'd heard a lot of these things, but this is not real time because they just came down, now they're going back up. They're not moving in anywhere. But you get the sense it's going to happen, to say the least. Like I said, everything is pointing to this, and nothing is pointing to the idea that soon they will be going back to their home environment, wherever, whatever, and they will never come back again, which would be my favorite thought. I've never heard that, but what I do hear all the time is soon we'll all be together. It's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, everybody's going to love it. So I began to put together, I'm actually putting together a book. I've been threatening to do that for years, and I'm still in the threat stage. And of how these beings integrate, what are the trials and the tribulations, what kind of problems do they have, and what's the abductees' roles in them, and et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing we're going to do is see some slides. I say that's an old word. We'll see a PowerPoint presentation. We'll see some digitals of some of the things that I've just talked about, and then we'll have I'll ask a question that has not been answered before. So, and the question will be a real simple question. Okay, so now I take this and I have to point it at something that has a top on it. that. I'll just point it in that direction. Okay. Oh, okay. What I want to talk about first here is the pecking order, the hierarchy of authority of aliens. Now, the question is, what is an alien and what is a hybrid? And when is there ever an area, a gray area, I may say, of not sure? We're not sure. Now, there's tall, insect-like aliens. People say their heads look like parking meters. People say their heads look like praying mantises. That's the most common phrase used, praying mantis. They're real thin. People don't normally describe a nose or a mouth on them or a vestigial slit or holes. They really look alien. These beings really look alien, really alien. From what we can tell in the abduction phenomenon, as I have seen it, is that they are the order givers, the top of the line, top of the heap.